We call him Godzilla.
How they made Godzilla. They made it a success. It took them 70 years and around 36 attempts. The leading actors and critics were skeptical about the movie's success, while American troops refused to be associated with it after they read the script. However, the negative predictions never came true. The motion picture marked the beginning of a new franchise about iconic monsters and made Quentin Tarantino cry. Movies Inside Out presents Godzilla is a 2014 blockbuster that masterfully fused drama and action genres, becoming the first successful American remake of the Japanese franchise. Watch our new video to learn what convinced Juliette Binoche to sign the contract, how the crew shot San Francisco scenes in Canada, and how the movies Godzilla and Jaws are connected. Hope you're sitting comfortably, as we have a lot of interesting facts for you. The creation story. The history of Godzilla goes way back to 1954, when the first installment in the Japanese media franchise about a prehistoric reptile monster came out. Not those reptiles again, they're everywhere. Since then, Godzilla has become one of the main Japanese pop culture symbols in the world, giving spring to an infinite number of sequels. There are more than 30 motion pictures produced in Japan alone. Apparently, this is how Japan has managed to stay economically stable for the last 70 years. In 1992, the American company TriStar Pictures announced they were planning on producing a trilogy about Godzilla, and the premiere of the first Godzilla film, directed by Roland Emmerich, took place in 1998. The motion picture received negative reviews and became a financial failure for the studio, so they scrapped the work on sequels.
We did nothing to him.
Oh, that's not true. We fed him.
In August 2009, rumors started to circulate that the production company Legendary Pictures was in talks with the Japanese studio Toho about filming the American version of the movie about Godzilla that was scheduled to be released in 2012. In March 2010, Legendary announced they bought movie rights and that Warner Brothers would be co-producing the project. Soon after that, the studio invited Dave Callahan to work on a draft script, but later on, it appeared that Gareth Edwards would take on the directorial work. Back at the time, he had worked only on one feature film, Monsters, with a budget of only $500,000. The development stage took longer than expected, so the premiere was postponed indefinitely. In the next few years, the script was rehashed by several screenwriters, but Max Borenstein's ideas made the main body of the script. By the way, the screenwriter watched 28 Japanese movies about Godzilla to see what made them so enticing for 6 decades. In the meantime, Edwards worked with a design team to analyze all previous Godzilla appearances and create a monster that would give off the same aesthetics as the original Toho franchise. Casting. Initially, the studio saw Joseph Gordon-Levitt as the lead, but the actor declined the offer. Among other candidates, there were Henry Cavill, Scoot McNairy, and Caleb Landry Jones. However, in January 2013, the news got out that the studio wanted to work with Aaron Taylor Johnson, who ended up portraying Ford Brody. Juliette Binoche, who played Sandra Brody, accepted the offer to join the project because she was impressed with the letter that the director sent to her personally. Another reason was that she wanted to do it for her son, a huge Godzilla fan. Still, later Edwards claimed that Binoche and Bryan Cranston signed the contract because of the emotional scene of Sandra dying. By the way, at first, Cranston, who portrayed Joe Brody, didn't intend to join the potential blockbuster. He had just finished working on the TV show Breaking Bad, which had been a hit for several years, and he didn't want to lower the bar with a less successful project. But Edwards managed to change his mind. Ken Watanabe, who brought to life the character of Dr. Ishiro Serizawa, was also skeptical about the Hollywood production. However, the director came through once again and talked him into joining the project. Elizabeth Olsen decided to come on board because she was impressed with Edwards' previous movie, Monsters. Apart from that, the actress wanted to appear in a bigger project after being an indie actress for several years. After filming had begun, Sally Hawkins and Richard T. Jones joined the cast to play Vivian Graham and Russell Hampton. Did you know that Akira Takarada, the star of the original Godzilla movie and several sequels, made a cameo as the immigration service worker? However, Gareth Edwards decided to cut his scene from the movie, which he, by the way, regretted afterwards. The filming process. The filming stage started on March 18, 2013, in Vancouver, under the working title Nautilus. They shot most of the scenes at the Vancouver Convention Center inside BC Place and in Cypress Provincial Park, which served as San Francisco's Bay Area. After that, the crew went to Richmond to film the battle scene with about 200 soldiers and lots of military vehicles. They also filmed at the stages of Canadian Motion Picture Park in Burnaby, where they built a San Francisco Chinatown street, a giant sinkhole set used for the Philippine mine, the Muto Nest, and a 400-foot section of the Golden Gate Bridge. On-location shooting took place in Honolulu, Hawaii, in the summer of 2013. More than 2,000 locals applied as extras, but only 200 people made the casting. In an interview, Aaron Tyler Johnson shared that they were mainly filming on vacation, trying to keep usage of green screens to a minimum. He also mentioned that the filming crew was relatively small compared to other projects he worked on. The US Navy contributed to the making of the movie, and they gave 3 aircraft carriers for filming. For instance, the USS Missouri was used to shoot a part of the introduction scene at Pearl Harbor. The US Marine Corps, who appeared in the 1998 movie, refused to work on the new film after they saw the script. To deliver a convincing performance as a military officer, Taylor Johnson went through a mini boot camp with Sergeant Major James D. Dever. He also assisted the stuntmen training for high-altitude jumps. To recreate a feeling of a distant period feel in the scenes that take place in 1954, cinematographer Seamus McGarvey shot them with vintage 1960s lenses. Later on, he used digital processing to give the dark elements a magenta tint. Although Godzilla was meant to be released in 3D, it was released mainly in 2D. McGarvey went with this option as he liked neither working with 3D technologies nor watching movies in 3D on the big screen. The director Gareth Edwards shared that he deliberately placed more people in the frame while shooting scenes with monsters to amplify the feeling of grandness. The creators would also place cameras in a way that would create an impression that people filmed the events on the run. Jim Riegel was the visual effects supervisor. He's mostly known for his work on the movie trilogy Lord of the Rings. He teamed up with a lot of companies to work on production, with moving picture company run by Guillaume Rocheron. He was nominated for Oscars for the movie Life of Pi. The computer graphics were made in the same vein as the original Toho series, but the monster became more dynamic. To create a 3D version of Godzilla that was 347 feet tall according to the plot, the designers studied animals like bears, Komodo dragons, lizards, lions, and wolves. This helped the illustrators compose Godzilla's body. It's interesting that initially Edwards thought it would be an easy task, since the character's appearance was already there. The creation process ended up taking more than a year. It's also interesting that the director described Godzilla as an antagonist, and said the human-wildlife conflict lies at the core of the movie. People are powerless in this fight, and moreover, they deserve to receive punishment in nature's wrath manifested through Godzilla. They used high-quality panoramic shots of the San Francisco skyline in the production of the movie. They also created a 3-dimensional map of the city that was used as the background in the scenes filmed on the Vancouver Bridge. According to Jim Riegel, this technique allowed them to imagine they were in the real city and tied together the live footage and the key animated scenes featuring monsters crushing digital buildings. For some scenes with Godzilla, they used motion capture. For instance, stuntman T.J. Storm moved around according to the script in a suit with tracking dots and a tail made of styrofoam. The crew turned him into a monster in post-production. According to the director, this helped them create a more realistic Godzilla. By the way, Storm came out on set after they filmed the bulk of the movie and didn't even interact with the director and actors. The creators took the famous Godzilla roar very seriously as well. They decided to use the original recording from the Japanese movie, just remastering it. Although there were a lot of special effects used in the movie, the directors tried not only to steer away from the plot to deliver a truly enticing story, rather than shooting another generic blockbuster. Bryan Cranston revealed that Gareth Edwards used the movie Jaws as inspiration while working on the project. This made him create some suspense around the monster instead of showing it right away. By the way, the Brody family was named after the main character of Spielberg's movie. The filming of Godzilla wrapped on July 14, 2013, and post-production was done at the end of March 2014. Once the movie director confessed that he felt a lot of pressure from the studio and fans of the original franchise. Moreover, he put a lot of pressure on himself because he felt that working on a movie like this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and he couldn't mess it up. Movie mistakes and errors. Naturally, the Godzilla creators couldn't avoid either little mistakes or serious factual errors. How many inaccuracies do you think there are in the movie? Pause the video to write your guess in the comments and join us as we go through them together. So, during the earthquake scene, Sandra is the last one to start running, but in the next shot, she's in front of everyone. At first, there are only 2 people running behind her, and somehow it's 4 people at some point. Then, Sandra falls on her stomach, and in the next shot, she's on her back. Apart from that, the teacher probably wouldn't leave the classroom first without making sure the kids are safe. When Joe and Ford get to the quarantine area, they find out that there's no radiation whatsoever. But it's impossible, as the dosimeter should have shown the background radiation level, which is still higher than 0. Maybe instead of watching 28 movies about Godzilla, the screenwriter should have tried playing Stalker to learn everything about radiation. After that, Joe takes off his mask and says that the air is clear, which is not surprising, as even if the radiation was crazy, they wouldn't be able to tell this way. While in an old house that turned to ruin, the characters find floppy disks that miraculously are still working. An exclamation mark somehow appears on the holiday lights, even though it wasn't there 15 years ago. Apart from that, at the beginning of the movie, the atomic power plant was located not far from the character's house, but later it was on the other bank of the water. In the helicopter scene, Ford takes the oxygen mask off Joe's face, and several seconds later, it's back on. Moreover, the characters speak in a low voice, although such helicopters are so loud that you can't communicate without a mic and headphones. Initially, the impulse coming from Muto destroyed the electronic communications in the city, but there are lots of working signs and lights that can be seen during the tsunami scene. In the same scene, the windows in the place definitely wouldn't survive the insane water pressure. After the Mutos are defeated, the electricity just starts working again, although all appliances that suffered from electromagnetic impulse should have been either fixed, restarted, or even disposed of. The Yucca Mountain Nuclear Waste Repository was closed in 2011, while the events in the movie take place in 2014. Moreover, the repository is 80 miles from Las Vegas, but somehow the military man can see the city through binoculars. In one of the scenes, Serizawa shows Stenz a watch and says that it belonged to his father, who died during the nuclear attack on Hiroshima in 1945. Based on his words, the character is supposed to be about 70 years old, but he looks way younger. Later, a tank on fire hits the riverbank and then starts floating down the stream, although modern tanks don't do that. Initially, you can see 2 missiles on the train, but there are 4 of them in the crash scene. During the troops' attack, the main part of the cables on the Golden Gate Bridge is severed. After that, the roadway is still there. Unlike in reality, it would instantly drop into the water. In the same scene, Godzilla's whole body is under the water, but when it stands up, the water is only up to its knees. The troops on the plane put on oxygen masks when the door is open, while in reality, they should have done it before the pressure inside the cabin equalized. Another thing to point out is that the troops have nothing to protect their necks, and since the temperature is very low at this altitude, they simply wouldn't survive. It also turns out that car alarms and navigation systems work perfectly, even though they should have suffered damage from electromagnetic impulse. It's only 13 minutes until the detonation, and the missile boat wouldn't make it to the open water, meaning that there would be a massive nuclear explosion right in the San Francisco Bay Area. This would kill more people than the monsters. The helicopter with Ford on board also wouldn't be able to make it out of the damaged area. Right before that, Godzilla loses consciousness in the bay and finds itself in the heart of the city the next morning. Another weird thing is that there was no tsunami like in Honolulu when Godzilla submerged in water. How close were you to our result? Maybe you spotted some other mistakes that we missed. Share them in the comments. Deleted scenes. We've already mentioned the scene with Akira Takarada that didn't make the final cut for some reason. Apart from that, there were a lot of less significant yet pretty interesting moments cut from Godzilla. For instance, the movie creators decided to get rid of the scene where Dr. Serizawa looks at Godzilla that's underwater after the Hawaii incident. And in the scene where Godzilla appears near the Golden Gate Bridge, the camera originally followed the monster all the time, but in the final cut, they decided to show us some kids on a school bus. The same thing happened with the Muto fighting scenes. Initially, the focus was on Godzilla. And before it used atomic breath, we could take a longer look at the Muto. Instead, we saw Ford's reaction to it. In the final scene, where Godzilla goes back to the ocean, the viewers could see more spectacular shots if the creators didn't put them on the TV screen that the characters were watching. The submerging of the monster into the water could also look different, and in this case, the final version would be more epic. By the way, they promised to release an extended version of the movie, but it's been almost 10 years since the premiere, and the fans still haven't seen any additional materials. Worldwide recognition. The premiere of the movie Godzilla marked the 60th anniversary of the Japanese movie about the monster. It happened on May 8, 2014 in the Hollywood Movie Theater Dolby. The reaction of the first viewers was positive, which gave the creators some confidence. At the same time, a 22-foot Godzilla statue was placed in front of the El Capitan Theater, where the premiere party was hosted. Fun fact, the Japanese company Toho did a special screening of the movie back in April. After that, its representatives contacted Edwards to tell him that the motion picture turned out great. The movie was released internationally in almost 4,000 theaters on May 16, 2014 in 2D, 3D, and IMAX 3D. In the US, Godzilla received a PG-13 rating for intense sequences of destruction, mayhem, and creature violence. By the way, right before the premiere, a lot of licensed products were released. Toys and statues, a movie novelization, and a graphic novel prequel, as well as a mobile and video game. Forbes was predicting that the movie would be a commercial failure, alluding to the fact that the last Godzilla remakes were received poorly. The movie creators calculated that with a budget of $160 million and ad spending of $100, they had to gross $380 million to break even. The box office in North America earned only $200 million, but the movie managed to gross around $325 million internationally, becoming the 14th highest grossing movie of 2014. According to Deadline Hollywood, the net profit was more than $92 million. Most critics were positive about Godzilla, praising Edwards' directorial work and stunning visual effects, as well as the synergy of human drama and the spectacular sight of giant monsters. At the same time, a lot of experts criticized the generic characters and the fact that Godzilla got only 11 minutes of screen time. An interesting fact, Juliette Binoche shared that Quentin Tarantino told her he cried while watching the movie. He also mentioned that he had never cried at a blockbuster. The movie received several awards nominations. The most famous are Teen Choice Awards, which nominated Godzilla in 3 categories, and the Saturn Awards that nominated the movie for Best Science Fiction Film and Best Music. The motion picture also received a nomination from the Japanese Academy for Outstanding Foreign Language Film. Apart from that, Godzilla was included in the Oscar shortlist for visual effects, but it didn't get a chance to compete for the sacred statue. Naturally, the success of Godzilla inspired the producers to work on a sequel. In October 2015, Legendary announced the creation of the Godzilla and King Kong franchise called MonsterVerse. It included such projects as Kong Skull Island, Godzilla King of the Monsters, and Godzilla vs. Kong. On March 27, 2024, the world saw the premiere of a new installment in the MonsterVerse, Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. By the way, neither the director Gareth Edwards nor the lead actor Aaron Taylor-Jones were involved in the project. Why do you think Godzilla is still interesting to people around the world even after 70 years?